Arterburn. Welcome to Broadcasting Seeds. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, it's great to be here. It's good to see you again as well. Well, I guess a short synopsis would be I always start out my broadcast saying I'm a veteran of 3 foreign wars. I was a U.S. Army paratrooper, a military policeman back at the turn of the century. So I got all the.
It's
All,
so crazy that we can say that.
back when all the good times started, the end of the 20th century into the 21st. So 3 foreign wars under my belt. I learned a lot about history and foreign policy. Self-educated in many ways, although I did a little bit of University of Dallas, studied philosophy. But I'm an entrepreneur by trade. I know that's a very blanket statement, but that means that you've tried a lot of things and not been good at them, and then
Right.
found something that somebody recognizes you are good at. So many businesses later, I find myself in precious metals. I am the founder and CEO of Wise Wolf Gold and Silver Exchange, as well as Wolfpack Gold, which is a subscription service. I'm a radio host. I'm a podcaster. Let's see what else. I'm a dad. I've got a 20-year-old son. I love my Chihuahua mix. Her name is Beans. We travel all over. And I own a gym. I'm in my gym right now. So, that kind of sums up what I do and what keeps me busy.
Serial entrepreneurship.
Yes, I can't quit. I should
Yeah,
find
right.
a support group.
Exactly. And nothing but failing forward, right?
Yes, and you got to be like, oh, that was an interesting experience. And something my dad told me once. He said, sometimes the best deals that are the ones you don't do, and I learned that the hard way. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, baby. Yes, for sure. It's funny that you say that turn of the century thing, because I was deployed to Bosnia at the turn of the century.
Yeah.
Just madness.
I did Kosovo.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Little Balkan action. It's good. It's all good. Builds character, puts hair on the chest, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So, tell us your podcasts, which, cause you have two, right?
Yes, I'm on a show called America Unplugged on Saturdays. That's with the historian Don Jeffries, and there's another podcaster, Billy Ray Valentine. And we do a panel show. It's different viewpoints, kind of a synopsis on the news of the week. But I've had a radio show for many years called the Arterburn Radio Transmission, and I used to be on standard talk, conservative talk radio. I've long since crossed the Rubicon into the conspiracy theory of history, where they allowed me to be on, but the audience wasn't even there. It's like I don't play team sports with the duopoly of the two parties, so I left that a long time ago. I like to do macro, big picture, geopolitical analysis, hidden history. So I have that, and I have a show called Paratruther that I do because I was a paratrooper. I had a show called Paratruther that I do with a man named Mr. Anderson. I didn't say man; he's younger than me, but I grew up. I've known him since he was 12 years old, and he's a scientist, PhD, really analytical mind, and great researcher. I do a show with him, and so we break down in hidden history, biography, unexplained conspiracy stuff like that. But I don't do that stuff for the clickbait effect or to do gloom and doom. It's mostly to get an accurate picture of where we are and where we've been, so you can better ascertain what's in front of you. That's what I try to do as an analyst. And so, yeah, a lot of that gets back into the financial system. That's my wheelhouse. The origin of fiat currency and what sound money is, and why why the fiat currency system drives the deep state or the hidden hand, like how you get into the esoteric part about how it's economic alchemy and all the rest of that. So it's a hodgepodge. I've got real world stuff versus, it's all real world, but it's all, we got mainline stuff that we discussed along with the hidden hand and the darker corners of our reality.
Yes, for sure. So like this podcast, we talk about all those things, and more. And the one question I love to ask everybody is, kind of what was your gateway into this world of strange stuff, hidden history, things like that. What was your gateway into that?
Well, it started out, I think, in the mid '90s. Actually, as a teenager, my father, entrepreneur, hardest working man I've ever met, he started businesses and had built a bank by the time he was 29, and had convenience stores and a fuel business. I watched him, and I just thought that was normal. Like, you have an idea, you go work really hard, you build things. I thought that's just what you do. And that just I grew up that way. I was driving around, with my grandfather in the 1980s in Dallas, building convenience stores, and that's what you did. That's what Pop does. But that my dad was that way. And anyway, about the mid 90s, after Ruby Ridge and after Waco, something really interesting happened. My dad started to going, what's actually going on here? Then you have the Brady Bill and the assault weapons ban and all that. And so you start seeing it. He wasn't alone. That was a big demographic shift in the U.S., where a lot of people that were just centrist, mainline people were like, what's the government doing here? Burning people alive in Waco, and, going after Randy Weaver, shooting his wife in the head at Ruby Ridge, holding her baby because he had a gun that was too short, stuff like that. I mean, what's going on? And so he wasn't alone. I got to go to a lot of meetings and other things that I ended up going to see people like Lieutenant Colonel Bo Greitz, which was, if you listen to the Patriot radio wars in the 90s, him and Bill Cooper were big figures there. And so I was plugged into, we go to book shows and stuff at these conferences, and it'd have, black helicopters over America. And what is the new world order? And, I was seeing this stuff as a teenager. Now, I can tell you, I didn't like that. I was like, well, I don't want to live in this world. I mean, it was showing you possibilities, and that's what I know now. And they were right about a lot of stuff, wrong about some stuff, but more right than wrong. And of course, everything came crashing down with the Manchurian candidate Timothy McVeigh showing up in the Murrah building in Oklahoma City. And that's where they put a stop to that. Of course, that's the precursor for the Patriot Act that Biden had drew up, and all that stuff that we know that surrounds that.
Right.
That's a false flag operation. There's something inherently kind of like 9/11. It was a test, but that was a way to squash and put a black eye on anybody who was, hey, I'm for the Constitution. I believe that you have the right to, the bill. I'm for the Bill of Rights. I'm for sovereignty and all the rest. That squashed that movement for a long time. And, post 9/11 world, which everything's very confusing. But I started to slowly, as I grew older, when I joined the military and started to see the inner workings and minutia of foreign policy. Because you hear like I was the part of the first Army company on the ground in Kandahar, Afghanistan. So, I was briefed by General Mattis, like, standing in front of me. Like, I get off the plane and he's briefing. So that was how close. And I'm an observer. It's not like I'm important. I was an E4, but part of a very special unit that was military police, mostly to help gather intelligence and other things and secure areas. So I got to see a lot of the periphery of what was going on. And, I read deeply, especially my tour in Iraq. I probably read close to 200 books. That's what I've estimated, on history and biography and other things, because I wanted to self-educate. And the more I looked into it, the more I read history, the more I saw missing threads. And when I get to a place like where I read Gary Allen's work, None Dare Call It Conspiracy, or I read Patrick Buchanan's The Death of the West. Not to say that's a conspiracy book per se, but it really touches on, like, who was the Frankfurt School? What is cultural Marxism? Then you read Gary Allen and you're like, oh, by the way, the death struggle between communism and capitalism was all just a pageant. Like, they put this show on, and who was Karl Marx and who funded Marx? And, like, you get into this and you read James Perloff, who wrote Truth is a Lonely Warrior, or Donald Jeffries, who I do a show with, Hidden History. And you start to see that history's not what the court historians, it's an incomplete picture. So to me, conspiracy research and conspiracy theory, much as, a made up term by the FBI and CIA, conspiracy theorist, I'm a conspiracy. Gore Vidal said it best. He goes, "I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy analyst." And he goes, "They don't even have to. Doesn't have to conspire. They all think alike." He's talking about the ruling class, and we're so far down the rabbit hole now with fiat currency, and a lot of people don't understand. Like, you take the governor off the system when you don't have to account for the money supply anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so this expanded. There's always been conspiracy. There's always like conspirators and hidden. There's always those who want to shape history for their own ends. But we've accelerated. That's not on steroids, if you want to call it that now. So that's what I like to explain to my audience and talk about, is that it's not like, this is so far fetched. We have documented proof that the world's richest people set up the Bolshevik Revolution,
Mm-hmm.
set up Mao's revolution in 1949 in China to take over the mainland China. We have all that proof. We have proof with Anthony Sutton, with Wall Street and the rise of Hitler. We have all this is documented. It's not conspiracy theory. This is just research that doesn't get put into mainline books, because mainline history says, okay, we're just, going through this flow of history. Oh, there's a dictator. Oh, there's a war. And now the world's reset, and that just happened organically. And these movements don't need funding or support or anything. They come out of nowhere because it's all ideological. And that sounds good on paper until you realize what it takes to put these things together. So, unpacking this has been a passion of mine. And I can't believe I get to do what I do. I did a show
Yeah.
last couple weeks ago on Paratruther with Donald Jeffries on his new book called The American Memory Hole. And we
Mm-hmm.
got done, and I asked my co-host, Mr. Anderson, I said, "Do you believe we get to do this? It's so cool to have these deep conversations on history." So it really ties back to what I do for a profession as well, with sound money and gold and silver. But that's it in a nutshell. That's what got me started. That's the long way around saying why I do
Right.
what I do now.
Yeah, to kind of touch on some of that, like you bring up, I've heard you bring it up in the past on different episodes about the $3 trillion that Rumsfeld announced, that, and what hit me lately was trying to explain, like, so many people have forgotten about that, right? Or never even knew about the 3 trillion missing dollars, until now. You get this assistant, what was she, an assistant secretary of housing and urban development, that just gave testimony. It was for the the
You talking
Bush
about
administration.
Catherine Austin Fitts?
Yeah, Catherine Austin, the $21 trillion.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
It's
then
20.
I'm
Yeah,
like, as if this is something new, folks. I'm like, I mean, it's about 8 times the size of the 3 trillion, but like, this stuff has been going on forever. I don't know what to tell you.
you got to think of the scope and scale here. Okay, so in 1979, I was born the day the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, which was
Mm-hmm.
ironic because 22 years later, on my basically
Yeah.
on my birthday, I'm flying into to Afghanistan. Um, so you go back and look at that America. Okay, we've been off the gold standard for 8 years. The debt of the U.S. was just under $1 trillion. Okay, right before Reagan. Now we go into debt. We go into $1 trillion in debt every 90 days.
It's
So it
insane.
took us from
Right.
1776 to 1979 to hit $1 trillion in debt, and now we do it every 90 days. And you fast forward to 2001, Donald Rumsfeld, newly appointed Secretary of Defense for the second time,
For the second
uh,
time. Right.
comes out. Most people don't know that. Comes out and says we cannot account for $2.3 trillion, and he goes on to say that it's going to be, we got this accounting wing in the Pentagon, and we're going to be looking for it. Now, whatever hit the Pentagon hit the accounting office.
It's so weird.
Okay. Yeah.
Total coincidence, I'm
so,
sure.
so more than twice the debt of the U.S. in 1979 goes missing, and they can't account for it. So it's not like, hey,
Right.
we overspent. We can't account for the accrued debt of this nation 21 years prior. It's just gone. So we don't know where it is, but we'll find it. Don't you trust us? And that is where you have to suspend disbelief to be involved in politics now. Like, because you're just going, you don't talk, I mean, you're not talking about the real existential issues.
Right.
It's just a lot of maneuvering and minutia. And like, I don't have all the answers. I just try to ask better questions because I think that's to get a
Right.
better picture of reality. But you're right. I mean, it's so much of that.
I mean, it's not even about having the right answers. It's about being like, this is something weird. Like this isn't. This is a glitch. Like what is happening here, and what it's putting your finger on that and being able to. Well, it's like we said, like the justification for going into Iraq the second time. We had everyone talked about the WMDs and this and that and the other thing, and it turns out that they didn't have the WMDs they thought they had. But here's the point, and this is what I say to people. We knew they had WMDs because Donald Rumsfeld sold them to them. Like
No,
he has he has the receipt.
it's one of my favorite cutaway clips from the 2008 presidential election because you have hacks like Sean Hannity, and the Fox News crowd was totally aghast that this guy named Ron Paul, this unknown congressman from Texas, is throwing a wrench into their mechanisms of this is the Republican primary because he's getting all the donations, he's getting all the love and the support, he's winning the
Right.
online polls, but they don't want him to do anything. So he's Hannity's grilling Ron Paul, and he says, "So you think it's okay that he can gas his own people?" You're talking about because we're talking about the Iraq War, why we went in, and Paul was saying it was a mistake, and it's about to go to commercial, and Ron Paul just looks at Sean Hannity and says, "We gave him the gas," and Hannity doesn't know. Like he can't compute that is the way the world
Right.
works, and then it just goes to commercial. That was one of the finer moments in my life. Like
Yes.
I was 28, and I just thought, wow, somebody really said it. And there's somebody that
Yes.
has a mind for how this really works. And I remember Donald Rumsfeld on CNN. They brought up that clip of him shaking Saddam Hussein's hand in the 80s, and he goes, "Where did you get that?" And they said, "Oh, we got it from the archives." And he just said, "Isn't that interesting?" Like,
Isn't that interesting? And now I bet they're not in the archives.
oh,
You
they
know.
scrubbed. It's
Oh
so
yeah.
much that they scrubbed. I mean, they scrubbed. Well, we could get into 9/11 lore, because I
Mm,
mean, I was a little bit of a piece of that history, just a tiny portion, but I saw some things
yeah. Where
that
were
kind of.
you on 9/11?
Oh, interestingly enough, I was in Sofia, Bulgaria, representing the United States on the American powerlifting team at
Oh
the World
yeah,
Powerlifting
right. I
Championships.
forgot that you did the powerlifting thing.
Yes, I was the world champion. I should include that in my bio. But
Yeah.
look, I train. I'm 45. You should. I'm so sore all the time. I love it though. I'm sore. I hurt.
Shoulder
I jumped out of
pain.
planes. I did all stuff.
Shoulders are hurting.
No, yeah, I try to. It's funny because I get older, and now I'm probably less. I was maybe a little bit stuffier when I was younger, like maybe a little bit more conservative. And now I've got, I'm tattooed. I got tattoos and I'm wearing
Yeah.
beads. I got a necklace and stuff. It's so funny if I could talk to my former self, but I'm like, I became a little bit more spiritual and if you want to call like metaphysical or
It's
woo
just what
woo or
happens when
whatever.
you age, because I have
Yeah,
to.
yeah, I got so much of me is youthful, except my body is like I'm strong, but oh man, don't ask me. Like in the morning, I'm like, oh Lord, like my hips and everything else. I'm hurting, man. I'm hurting.
Yeah.
But it's a good life, and I'm glad I did all those things when I was younger, and it taught me a lot. But yeah, I was on. See, unlike George H.W. Bush, like he didn't know where he was on the day Kennedy was assassinated. Never knew. It
Right.
changed. He doesn't quite know where he was.
It's so
Everybody knows
funny.
where they were. It's funny. I tell
Yeah,
this story. I ran for Congress in 2013, 14 against the last World War II veteran in Congress. His name was Ralph Hall, and now he became my very good. I knew him since I was a kid. He used to be a Democrat, switched over. He was friends with LBJ and
I
John
love that.
Connally,
I
and
love that when that happens too.
he switched up. But he was, I mean, he was an old school uh, politician type. Like his hand, he'd shake hands. He was just
Yeah,
kissing babies. Like but he had strategy. But he didn't spend a lot of money. He just had a name. He'd been doing it
yeah,
for so long. And we talk history for hours, especially when he was out of power. I lost the election. Obviously, I helped him, and then he lost the runoff to John Ratcliffe, who's now head of the CIA.
yeah. Of
So,
course.
and John Ratcliffe, they would have me go out and speak for Ralph in the last election and be a surrogate. And so John doesn't like me very much. And I think now he's head of the CIA. So I hope I don't, get droned or something. But he was on that signal deal that they just had on that conversation that got leaked. It's pretty
Yes.
funny.
Yeah.
Um, but I asked Ralph one day, I said, uh, Ralph, where were you on November 22nd, 1963? And he said, well, I was getting ready to leave Rockwall, Texas to go to Austin to meet the president because that's where Kennedy was headed. So he was scheduled to go to the dinner that never was. So he knows
Yeah.
where he was supposed to be. And that's because he was
Right.
such good friends with John Connally, who was riding in the car
Yes.
with Kennedy. So I've got to, it's funny in my life. I've got to be again, on the periphery of the outside of, and talk to people who've lived through so much history. And I think I have a decent historical sense, and I try to learn more every day. But it's a bigger picture than what we're taught when we're younger, especially through the mainline history. So it's good to have alternative media to ask these questions.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was actually in Egypt when 9/11 kicked off, and we were watching it happen on AFN and um uh South Camp and Sinai and Nama Bay, Egypt, as part of the multinational force and observers that was there. And it was so surreal because once the Pentagon, whatever hit the Pentagon, they called general quarters and we all went running to our uh, posts, right? And we were on alert for the next, I don't know, 30 days or so, basically until we went into Afghanistan. Not well, some folks went into Afghanistan, but yeah, crazy. It was absolutely insane. So
It was an insane time. My unit that I was with, I was a colonel's driver at Fort Bragg. They'd moved me over there because I'd done my first tour in Kosovo. Came back, they found out Tony's a world champion powerlifter, and my colonel at the time said, Arterburn, just go lift. You want to get on the net? You done your tour, love what you've done. Be my driver, go lift. So I started winning competitions again, and I won the nationals. So I was going to go over and represent the U.S. And so I go over to Bulgaria to represent the United States. So when I was gone, the unit I was with deployed immediately to the Pentagon. So had I been there, I would have a different story. I would be telling you what I saw at the
yeah,
Pentagon immediately following whatever hit the Pentagon. Now, I never got to see many of those people again. I mean, they were gone, they were deployed. And so I got back and they put me on the line unit, which was the 108th MP Company. It was actually airborne air assault, which I think the only one in the Army. And said, you're going to go to Afghanistan. Okay. So we got orders. We were ready to go. I mean, so I was in calendar year. It's funny. People ask me, so you were first in, so it was like 2003. And I'm like 2001. Like I was there in Afghanistan end of 2001. So, um, that gives you that perspective I have now, especially what I know about that timeline and who Bin Laden is and Al
mm-hmm.
Qaeda and all the rest of that. Um, It really, I mean, that always burns in my mind because
Yeah.
compartmentalization is really important. There was high level officials there asking people on the ground, when's the last time you saw Osama bin Laden?
Hmm.
But but we know now that the station chief in Dubai for the CIA met with bin Laden uh, in July of that year while he's on dialysis,
Right.
um, because he's an asset. And they knew he was in Rawalpindi, Pakistan on September as late as September 10th. So it's not all monolithic where everybody knows everything and we don't know everything about 9/11. But what I do not believe is the official story. That's a fairy tale.
Right.
It's another one of
Yeah.
those invisible enemies.
For sure. For sure. Um, so just to transition a touch to talk about some more like, kind of like where we're going. Right. So one of the first things I did when I got out of the army in, May of 2003. And well, officially, I went on terminal leave in April, and I got out 30 days later. It was May 21st, technically, my ETS, right?
Okay.
May 21st, 2003, and they stop lost everybody in the O3 field on June 1st. So I kind of made it out under the skin of my teeth, literally. There's some guilt for that, but at the end of the day, I look back and I'm kind of happy it happened. But one of the first things I did is I made some investments in precious metals. So a very smart person at the time had told me to buy, I had started down the rabbit hole. They had told me to buy precious metals. And at that time with my, that check you get when you get out, I bought some silver and I bought some gold because gold was still, at that time it was,
About $400.
affordable. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was like, actually it was 300 and somewhere around 375,
Yep.
somewhere around in there. Cause I bought this in October of '03, and I bought like 3 ounces of gold and I bought like 10 ounces of silver, and silver was at like just under $5, which is insane now that you think about it. Right. Um, and I actually still have those actual physical silver. I probably shouldn't telegraph that, but
And it's over here in my combination.
it's over here. It's in my safe right over here. You know what I mean?
I,
So, but either way, how did you, because you said you've gone on a little winding road of entrepreneurship, been there, done that. I've done it as well. And you landed square in the gold sector, or in the precious metal sector. So how did that happen?
that is I mean, I've often thought about, I really, it's something I have a lot of gratitude for, and it's probably just God's mercy pointing me in a way like where I start noticing. Well, my dad had always bought gold, and I somewhat understood it. It's funny you mentioned that. If you'd bought $3,500 worth of gold in around that time that you were getting out of the army, you would have $35,000 now. Like if you just
Yeah.
save if you save $3,500 in cash, you'd have $3,500 in cash. So good luck with that. But you would have 35,000. Basically, I'm just 10xing it,
Roughly. Yeah.
um, roughly.
Yeah. Cause what
Um,
happened, it's at 33.93 as we speak, I think. Something like that.
yes, yeah, and so it's roughly right.
Right.
You'd have a 10x, and of course, if you had bought gold in 1971, which you couldn't have done because it's illegal. But let's
Right.
say that you had,
Which just makes my head explode.
you'd have
Like
a
it's
hundred
illegal.
x. It's
Yeah.
100x from where we were, and it's not so much that gold's going up in value; it's that the dollar's losing purchasing power against it, and that's
Yes.
the magic trick that they don't teach you in school, because if they did, just like Henry Ford said, there'd be a revolution in the morning if people understood the banking system.
Right. Well, it's like people talk about 1950s prices or 1960s prices. You had that one gentleman, I think we talked about this last time we talked, where he had a diner and he was charging like 1955 prices and accepting like a 10 cents pre
Yes.
19 what is it?
64,
Yeah,
64 and back.
pre
Dimes.
64 dimes, and you could buy a hamburger for that. Yeah.
I'm thinking
So
about doing that I was thinking about doing my coffee business again. And saying any physical, if you come to a physical location, we accept payments in pre
I love it. That's awesome.
1965 silver.
Yeah. Just what we need, though, another veteran owned coffee
I
brand.
know, just another one. That has to be, yeah, I had to be careful with that because I don't want to go like make that the theme of it, that it's a veteran owned coffee.
Yeah,
Just a
right.
little addition to,
Yes. But if
name of
it's
my,
a static location, that's kind of a different animal. So,
yeah, and we're doing, we're going to do something with it because we mentioned off air, talking about, because the gold and silver business is doing pretty well. I say well, I mean, I'm paying, I got staff, I'm making payroll. So thank God for that. Um, but you need side projects,
of
or
course.
you're going to get taxed to death. And so that's a good side project, and that's something really cool. Everything I do is wolf themed, and that the name of my coffee is cool. Oh, there you go. I love that.
We all do this stuff.
I love that. I love it.
Goodness.
But yeah, we're working on that. I've got that project is Solo Lobo. That's lone wolf in Spanish. So
Yeah,
Solo
yeah.
Lobo coffee, fun
I like
times.
that.
But yeah, how did I get into this? Well,
Yeah, we
it's
went on a side tangent.
that's
So,
okay. The 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 flow of history there was learning more about, again, those corridors, those cul-de-sacs in history they don't talk about, and then the money supply. And I start really looking into silver. I start, buying silver dollars when I could, and met a couple of people in the precious metals business, and they said, "Well, you'd be good at this." And so I took a chance in 2018 and just opened up a shop in San Antonio and said, "Let's see if I can do this." And I did it on a shoestring, just like, okay, I leaned on like having a refiner close by that could X-ray stuff and verify things so it won't get burned. Um, and I used that to my advantage a lot. And so I was pretty fortunate there, and I had some good clients. I went back on the radio. One thing led to another, and then I'm broadcasting over on InfoWars and becoming a fill-in host there. I got a little bit wider known in alternative media, so my direct sales started to go in a positive direction. And I've been in Bitcoin since 2016. I'm still in Bitcoin. We have Wise Wolf Bitcoin, which I just relaunched that. I had been in the ATM business for a while, but I'm doing just a different type of company now with Bitcoin. So it was just a natural flow. I remember my dad once. I needed some help on getting a fuel invoice paid. I had a small convenience store, and it was just hard times. This is back around 2010. It's like so much had crashed.
oh yeah, brutal
Liquidity
times.
dried up. And I remember my dad came by and helped me. He pulled out, he had his Krugerrands in his pocket, and he handed me some Krugerrands and said, "There you go." And because he'd been saving them, he's like, "I'll help you with that. You help me with this thing," And it was basically paying me a commission. So I took those Krugerrands over to Dallas Gold and Silver, and I act like I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, I'm just gonna need, what's the closest we can get to a spot on this? Hell, I didn't even know what spot was. I'm just
Yeah.
mimicking it. I was 30 years old, and I'm like, I think I can figure this out. And you do your first couple of transactions, you like, oh, that's how that works. And so it's just been. Uh, I'm very blessed and fortunate. I get to do this. Like, I get to help people. And a few years ago, we started a subscription service that really took off because we targeted I say targeted, we offered things to people that otherwise wouldn't be buying precious metals because they either the knowledge gap or the income gap. And the big precious metals companies, I'm sorry, folks, they don't care if you have $500 or
No.
$50 or $5,000. It's not really in their wheelhouse. They want you to have 50,000, and that's what
Yeah.
they have those commercials for. So we have hundreds and hundreds of members in the low 50s to 125 range on monthlies, and then we have people all the way up to 5,000 on autos. Um, and we did
Yeah,
that through.
I'm on it and I love it. It just makes it a no-brainer. I don't have to think about it. And that's what was so cool about it.
That was our goal. Was let we're buying in bulk, and then we're buying products from the public. A lot of times under spot, because that's traditionally what you do is with the physical gold and silver exchange. We're offering convenience, and we can buy in bulk, and we never turn anybody away. And we'll take those products and we'll put them in Wolfpack. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm in Branson, Missouri, and my CFO, she flew in to help me unwind because it becomes so many moving parts. It's when I started this business, it was me, a legal pad, and my Labrador, and I can just, hey, I did
Right.
5 sales today. Here's what my cost was. This is my gross profit. I can eat this week. That's how I did it. I can buy groceries and gas and great and rent's covered. And now we have, 2 locations, and I've got an off-site head trader. She helps me, and named Yeka. She's wonderful, and she does all my direct sales. And I've got 7 employees. I mean, it's like it's become a bit of a thing. It's took on
Yeah,
a
for
life of its
sure.
own. So, and I have a CFO. I don't know. I would have never thought that, but
Yeah.
I,
No,
I'm like,
yeah, I get it.
I'll be the CFO. No, it doesn't work.
No.
I need to do podcasts and talk to people. So,
Right. Yeah, it's a little
um,
delegation time.
yes. So it's been uh, again, it's an adventure. Always meeting interesting people, and I love coins and history, and I'm learning stuff every day. You know, you get to see cool stuff. Like I just bought for inventory. I bought this. This is really you can't really see it, but I bought a 1952 Rolex that had been in somebody's safe for decades in North Texas, and it was redone by one of the watch people there in the area. And he came to me, and I said, "Yeah, I'll buy. I'll put it on inventory because I can hold this. It's a store of
Yeah.
value,
Right.
to watches, gold and silver, things that are finite." Always catch my attention, and because we're living in a sea of infinite fiat currency, and there's
Mm-hmm.
52 times more currency on Earth today than when I was born. Now, does that mean the currency went up in value, or does that mean it's more
Absolutely not.
ubiquitous?
Right.
And that's what they do. I ask people all the time, and there's some of the fun stuff you can do with numbers. It's like, does anybody know how long ago a trillion seconds was, like in time? I mean, have I asked you this before? Like how
Yeah.
long?
Yeah. And I don't
Yes.
remember, but it's like
It's
forever.
32,000 years
Yeah.
because a billion seconds ago was 32 years. So 1,000 billion. So it's 32,000 years ago in time. And you
Yes.
tell me that we're going to pay off this national debt that's accumulating a trillion every 100 days. That's
Yeah.
impossible.
It is. I was explaining that to my kids the other day because the million and billion and now $1 trillion word is just getting thrown all over the place. Those words are just thrown out there, and I kids don't get what $1 billion actually is. Like $1 billion is 1,000 million dollars,
Yeah.
and a trillion is 1,000 billion dollars. Like it's beyond fathomable. Like you can't. And we're throwing them around. Oh yeah, we're 32 trillion in debt. Like,
No big deal.
do you understand what that means?
Well, now
Like
we're
it,
just reaching a point where, like Dick Cheney said, that deficits don't matter.
yeah,
We're testing that because now we're close to 130% of debt to GDP, which gross domestic product. So everything
yeah,
every transact, all that. So we're at 130% of the debt. That's a metric that economists and people that are, very technical look at and say, you cross that threshold, you start to see rapid decline in the overall faith and power of the
Yeah.
economy in
I mean,
general.
we've seen it all over Europe. And
Yes,
come on, like, why are we different? We're not. We're not different.
math doesn't care about your belief systems.
No.
Math just is. It just exists. And once you reach a certain level, and that's why we were never intended to be, especially the founding of the United States was a bimetallic system. The founding fathers were geniuses. They weren't perfect, but they were geniuses. And they set this up because they knew history shows us that paper currency, even like Thomas Jefferson said, paper is poverty. Okay. And Voltaire, the philosopher, said that all paper currency goes back to its natural state and value, which is zero. They just know that instinctually. And so many scams and schemes come out of that. And who controls the money supply? You can go back to the Rothschilds in the 19th century, with Mayor Amschel Rothschild saying, I care not who sits on the British throne. The person who controls the British Empire is the one who controls the British money supply, and I control the British money supply.
Exactly.
That's a real quote, by the way.
Yeah.
That is some super arrogance, but he was right. I mean, in so many ways. And the bankers fund both sides of wars. They fund the what we perceive as the nature of reality opposing itself. But when you take a step back and you realize, okay, well, there was some wisdom in why we were supposed to have some accountability in our money. And there was no inflation in the 19th century, by the way. So, like all of the 1800s, I mean, with little peaks and valleys, there was. I mean, you had Lincoln with his greenbacks. In the Civil War, there was something. He was shot in the head in public. So was JFK. They both had greenbacks,
Yeah.
direct from the Treasury. Um, but there was an important lesson in that. Is if you bought something in the time of George Washington, it's going to cost the same in 1905. Okay, and so we talk about inflation like, oh, it's just when I was a kid,
It just is.
it just is, it just happens. I remember watching the movie uh, Falling Down with Michael Douglas, and he goes
Such a
in,
good movie.
isn't it though? And I
Yeah.
watched it when I was a kid. There's a couple of scenes that really stick out to me, but one of them ones is he goes into uh, the convenience store and he says, "I'm rolling prices back to 1965." And because he didn't like the new pricing, and
Right.
that is like that. It's like, why do we pay more? Well, you're not you're paying more. You're working harder to make less because the expansion of the money supply is robbing you of your energy. And I think it's not just a mathematical scheme. To me, it's a spiritual thing because it's like a certain class is feeding off of you, trading your energy for
Well,
something that isn't real.
what is your friend um Sam Tripoli always said call it Babylonian money magic, right?
Babylonian money man. Well, that's what it is. And
Yeah.
Joseph Farrell wrote a book called Babylon's Banksters, and it's a
Hmm.
great little book. And he talks about the Rothschild family. They believe that they harken back to the line of Nimrod. And by the way,
Hmm.
I've been to what was supposed to be Nimrod's palace in northern Iraq. The Tower of Babel and all of that stuff. I was supposedly saw that or whatever that was supposed to be.
Right.
Um, but that they've been doing this is from time immemorial. Like they want to control. I was just reading a history of gold. Really great book, very dense and a lot of history. And it was talking about Alexander the Great, and he toppled the Persians. The Persians didn't really use uh, gold as money per se, but it was an offering, and they had this massive treasury because to them gold was a spiritual thing, like an offering. And he basically took that storehouse that they had of gold when he took out the Persian Empire, and it was like 300 tons, and it flooded the known world at the time, and of course, made prices go down as far as like the price of gold or the purchasing power because it flooded the market, but it made all these other things start happening. All this commerce opened up and everything else. He died in was it 332 BC or something like
Hmm.
that. So Alexander the Great. He was 32 years old, and that left, this indelible mark on civilization and trade routes and everything else. And
Yeah.
that we didn't see that again until 1492 or so with Columbus and the New World. Gold, civilization is really built on the ability for people to have stores of value as money that is stable, and for everyday people to have access to that. That's how civilizations are built, and great nations are built on that. And they decline on fiat currency, fake money, and free trade, other things that we have now, which is like we worship at the altar of these things.
Yep.
And that's why you see such staggering decline here in the West. I think is because we removed any continuity of people trading their energy and time for something that they can store for later. You're constantly think of all the work we have to do to house value in our work now, because we have to
Yep.
chase things like stocks, real estate,
And none of it's
whether
tangible. I mean, real estate is, but it's different.
it's a bubble. And
It
the
is.
problem is it's
Correct.
too much of a bubble, because when you have fiat currency, every time now, when you have a home loan or you swipe a credit card, that's currency creation. You just made new currency. And it doesn't,
Yes.
you think, well, the bank loaned me the money. Well, the bank sort of did. They signed off on it. The Fed did that. They funded this loan. So that's new currency against something it never existed against something that did. And
Yeah.
so that game you're playing, it just robs you of so much of your time. And that's why I think things like Bitcoin are important too. That's a new technological advancement, and
Yep.
it's
What do
funny
you
you
think
mentioned
about
that.
and I know you trade in them, and I know you mess around with it. It's goldbacks.
I like goldbacks.
Yeah.
I mean, you're paying a premium, but think about this. I mean, gold's not going anywhere as far as like
It's
going.
just
It's
not.
not going to start. It's not going to start tanking. Like, oh, we just sold off all
Right.
the gold. Everything's great now.
Especially with the
Um,
way the way fiat's going, it's an actual store of wealth. So
right. And so, I mean, goldbacks, you are paying a premium, but they're 24 karat notes, and you melt
mhm.
them, you get gold. You get a stack of them, that's gold. And we buy a lot of them for Wolfpack. I mean, I try to get them in the lower tiers so people get a little bit of gold, because
Yeah.
I can't put.
No.
People ask me, can I get some gold in my lone wolf package for $50? And I'm like, yeah, you can get a gold back, because that's about all I can
You
do.
can't, you're not getting like
Hell, a half gram retails for $60,
yeah. It's
or
so
more. And so, I mean, even a half gram. So it's a good way to do fractional gold for the long term, to have something tradable that you can do back and forth. And silver works that way. We mentioned the pre 1965 silver, always good to have. But we're in a revolution of the financial system. I mean, I feel like I'm missing the boat on a bunch of it, because it's so much happening.
so much.
Uh,
It's just happening so fast. It's hard to pivot so fast. It's ugh.
it really is, and it does. It takes it. I have to center myself in the morning to go, okay, I I need to know what's going on. I also need to act on what's going on,
Right.
and just do all that you can, and forgive myself for missing out on a whole bunch of, because it's the new economic world order. Um, the elites, they call it the Great Reset,
Yeah.
for a reason.
Yeah. Right. I and even that is shifting at this point. It's so with like guys like Klaus Schwab retiring or whatever he's doing or whatever, and you
He's just
know
going back to his planet.
he's going. He's putting his Klingon costume back on and he's heading out. Right.
I like the Babylon Bee did a great story. It
So
says
good. This is the
Klaus
funniest
Schwab
thing ever.
steps down to spend more time with his lizard family.
It's the best thing ever. Ah, man, I love the Babylon Bee. Sometimes it's so good. Yeah, so I send that to friends. Like I made what do they call that? A GIF, whatever.
Yeah.
And I send it to my buddies of him standing at that podium with that outfit on with the shoulders that are like, it literally looks like a Klingon outfit. Unbelievable. But whatever. All right. So wrapping things up, can you just broadcasting seeds is the name of this podcast. Can you just plant some seeds in the audience's mind of where we're going and maybe what they can do to like try and do something to hang on with their fingernails, you know?
Well, the good news is you're still early. Okay, we're still early in the game, even though it doesn't look that way. Things are going to happen faster than they've happened previously. That's the way that history works. I don't make the rules. It's just the way that it is. So I would ask people to start doing research yourself. And don't just listen to me or anybody else. Look for yourself, internalize that. What's the difference between currency and money? Sometimes they can be the same thing, but today they aren't. Currency is without inherent value in and of itself. Whereas money, like silver, it has a use for industrial metal, for monetary, for medicine. Same thing with gold. And it's finite. There's only so much in the earth. You can go get it, but it takes a lot of work. So there's proof of work in that. Same thing with Bitcoin. We're in a race, I think, as individuals to try to acquire what is finite as much as we can with the infinite currencies. Like, so if we're dealing with dollars, do something every day where you're investing in yourself, which is a great return. So your knowledge, your own business, whatever it is, an asset that you own, and house that value, your energy, which is just kind of a metaphysical thing, into things like gold, silver, or Bitcoin. This is my opinion. This helps you hedge against what's going on out of your control with the Babylonian money magic, as Sam Tripoli says, that once you start looking at that in a different framework, like we're all very fortunate that in 1974, Gerald Ford made it legal for you to own gold again. Okay, that was an executive order overturning FDR's executive order in 1933, making gold illegal. So
There was a 40 plus odd period where you couldn't legally own gold, which is
yeah, mind
blows
blowing.
my mind. Right.
It's like, why? But it's because they decoupled from the gold standard. So
Right.
we can be our own bank now. And the technologies of decentralization are so promising. Now, there's pitfalls, and I mentioned Catherine Austin Fitts earlier. She had mentioned me the other day and was like, sorry, Tony, Bitcoin's a scam. And she may be right. Maybe I'm wrong. But I think the culture around Bitcoin is very positive. You got to think of the millions and millions and millions of people that are awake to this now that weren't awake to this 10 plus years ago when I first started in politics and radio in my early 30s. Um, I remember just being an outlier. And
Yeah.
now it's like, oh no, there's so many people that understand what I'm saying. So it's not going to get better. Like the fiat currency system isn't going to fix itself. They have pretty much one trick in their tool bag, and that's to hit the print button and make more of them. So when you're in that, you're inside of that cycle of history. Now there's going to be so many currency resets. The central banks are buying gold at a record clip. I can give you some insight on as a gold dealer in 2 states. When gold keeps going up, it keeps going up, but I don't have buyers for those large deals like I used to. But that's an interesting conundrum. How does it go up when I have people selling to me? Somebody's buying. Those are institutions, ladies and
Right.
gentlemen. Those are bigger players than you. While you're selling, they're buying, and they're buying for a reason
I mean,
because
like
they
London
see.
can't even keep up with the orders.
Correct. And
So,
the Shanghai Gold Exchange in China, they're moving. They're going to have satellite warehouses for physical gold. So I said this on Tinfoil Hat back in December. I said gold is already the world's reserve currency again. It's supplanted the dollar. You just don't see it yet, and
yeah.
the world's moving away from the dollar, de-dollarization. So it's just you can do things like join Wolfpack. I mean, you don't have to even do it with me. This is just I'm saying making it easy. Like if you want to set aside a certain amount of budget, put it into metals. We'll buy it for you. If you got bigger questions, give us a call. That help this stuff like that, and even Bitcoin. So I just try to provide. I try to provide real mechanisms to house your value and your work in a fiat world where there's ever declining value. And That's my mission statement.
And it's pretty awesome. Yeah, for sure. So again, thank you so much for coming on. But tell everyone where they can find you again.
Sure. So I made this really simple. If you want to go and just check me out and get the links to everything that I do, just go to tony.gold. Go to tony.gold. It'll take you to my website, which is arterburn.gold. And that's just a directing domain. And it shows you can go to Wise Wolf, you can go to Wolfpack, you can go to Wise Wolf Bitcoin. And my podcasts are all there. So tony.gold is an easy way to get started. You can message me if you have questions. And we're happy to hear from anybody's audience, and that's what we do. We're an education company too.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much, and we'll have to do it again shortly because the world is a changing place.
I'm always available. Just call or text me. I'll make time for you. It's what
Absolutely. I do. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared. Hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe all my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me away cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they fill in the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Drowning, I'm off the deep end. Apparitions of all my demons. All my thoughts are committing treason. All alone, who gon' hear me screaming? Manifestations of my fears. Regrets that stretched out for light years. Can almost touch the light, homie, it's right there. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, don't let me drown.